The city buzzed with life, its streets filled with honking cars, hurried pedestrians, and the faint hum of distant conversations. Among the towering skyscrapers stood a luxurious restaurant known for its elegant interiors, candlelit tables, and exquisite dishes that cost more than what most people earned in a week. This was the kind of place where only the elite dined. Business tycoons, celebrities, and influential figures gathered under one roof to indulge in fine dining and polished conversations. On this particular evening, Alexander Hartwell sat at his usual corner table near the window. Dressed impeccably in a charcoal gray suit tailored to perfection, he exuded power and sophistication. At 45 years old, Alexander was not just wealthy, he was one of the richest men in the country. His name was synonymous with success, and his face often graced magazine covers. But tonight there was no entourage of assistants or bodyguards accompanying him. Instead, he was joined by someone much smaller, a petite girl with curly brown hair and wide, curious eyes. Emily Hartwell, Alexander's 8-year-old daughter, sat across from him, swinging her legs back and forth beneath the table. Her pink dress shimmered faintly under the soft glow of the chandelier above. Though she looked adorable, her expression betrayed a mix of boredom and discomfort. She tugged at the stiff collar of her dress and sighed loudly, drawing a brief glance from her father. "Emily," Alexander said gently, trying to sound patient despite feeling out of his depth. "Please sit still. We're here to enjoy dinner." "I don't like it here," Emily replied bluntly, crossing her arms over her chest. "It's boring, and the chairs are hard." Alexander winced slightly. He had hoped this outing would bring them closer. Since losing his wife 2 years ago, he struggled to connect with Emily. Work consumed most of his time, leaving little room for parenting. Tonight he wanted to make an effort, to create memories, even if it meant stepping into unfamiliar territory, like this fancy restaurant. But so far, things weren't going as planned. As they waited for their food, Emily grew increasingly restless. She picked at the napkin on her lap, crumpling it into a ball before tossing it onto the table. Then, without warning, she slid off her chair and crouched down beside it, pretending to be invisible. A nearby waiter raised an eyebrow but said nothing, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. That's when Mia entered the picture. Mia was a young waitress working part-time at the restaurant while studying to become a teacher. With her shoulder-length dark hair tied neatly in a ponytail and a warm smile that lit up her face, she moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays loaded with gourmet meals. She noticed Emily almost immediately. The little girl hiding under the table stood out amidst the sea of well-dressed adults. Instead of scolding her or ignoring her behavior, Mia approached the table with curiosity. Kneeling down so she was eye-level with Emily, she whispered conspiratorially, "Hey there, are you playing hide-and-seek?" Emily peeked up cautiously, her big brown eyes meeting Mia's friendly gaze. For a moment, she hesitated, then nodded, shyly. "Well, I think you found the perfect hiding spot," Mia continued, lowering her voice as though sharing a secret. "But you know what? If you come out, I can tell you about the magic cookies we have in the kitchen. They're enchanted. You see, they make anyone who eats them laugh uncontrollably." Emily's eyes widened with intrigue. "Magic cookies? Absolutely." Mia grinned, nodding enthusiastically. "Would you like to try one?" Slowly, Emily crawled out from under the table and climbed back into her seat, her earlier sullenness replaced by curiosity. As Mia straightened up, she turned to Alexander, offering him an apologetic yet reassuring smile. "Kids love stories," she explained softly. "Sometimes all it takes is a little imagination to turn a bad day around." Alexander watched the interaction silently, his initial irritation melting away. There was something captivating about Mia's effortless charm and genuine warmth. She didn't seem fazed by Emily's antics. In fact, she embraced them with kindness and creativity. It reminded him of his late wife, Sarah, who had always known exactly how to handle Emily during her tantrums. For the next few minutes, Mia kept Emily entertained, telling her funny anecdotes about clumsy chefs and mischievous cats that supposedly lived in the restaurant's attic. Emily giggled uncontrollably, her laughter echoing through the otherwise hushed dining room. Even Alexander couldn't help but chuckle at some of Mia's tales. When the main course finally arrived, Emily was no longer sulking. She eagerly dug into her meal, occasionally glancing up at Mia with admiration. Alexander, meanwhile, found himself observing the young waitress with growing interest. There was something extraordinary about her, not just her ability to connect with children, but also the quiet confidence she carried, despite wearing a uniform and serving tables. Later that night, as Alexander tucked Emily into bed, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "Daddy, I like Mia. Can we go back to the restaurant again?" Her words lingered in Alexander's mind long after she fell asleep. He realized that in those fleeting moments at the restaurant, Mia had done what he had failed to do for months. She had made Emily happy. And for the first time in a long while, Alexander felt a spark of hope. Perhaps there was a way to bridge the gap between him and his daughter. Perhaps the answer lay in unexpected places, or in unexpected people. Little did he know, this chance encounter would set off a chain of events that would change not only his life but also Mia's forever. Mia's shift at the restaurant ended late that evening, long after Alexander and Emily had left. As she hung up her apron in the staff room, exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. It had been a long day, rushed orders, demanding customers, and endless footsteps across the polished marble floors. But moments like the one with Emily made it all worthwhile. Smiling faintly to herself, Mia thought about the little girl's laughter and how quickly she had gone from sulking to smiling. For someone who had seen so much hardship in her own life, bringing joy to others was a gift she cherished deeply. At 24 years old, Mia lived a life far removed from the glittering world of wealth and privilege that surrounded her at the restaurant. She shared a small one-bedroom apartment with her 16-year-old brother, Ethan. Their parents had passed away in a car accident 5 years earlier, leaving the siblings to fend for themselves. Though they received some financial support from distant relatives initially, Mia knew early on that she would have to take charge if they were going to survive. Determined to provide for Ethan and ensure he finished school, Mia juggled multiple jobs while pursuing her dream of becoming a teacher. During the day, she attended community college classes, scribbling notes furiously in worn-out notebooks. In the evenings, she worked as a waitress at the restaurant, earning just enough to cover rent, groceries, and Ethan's school fees. On weekends, she babysat neighborhood kids or cleaned houses to make ends meet. Her schedule was grueling, but Mia refused to let bitterness creep into her heart. Instead, she chose kindness, a philosophy instilled in her by her late mother. Kindness costs nothing, her mom used to say, but it can change everything. Those words echoed in Mia's mind every time she faced challenges. Whether it was dealing with rude customers at the restaurant or struggling to pay bills, she reminded herself that even the smallest act of compassion could make a difference. That belief drove her to go above and beyond in everything she did. If an elderly couple seemed lost in the menu, she patiently explained each dish. If a child threw a tantrum, she knelt down to their level and spoke softly, turning tears into giggles. Her co-workers often teased her for being too nice, but Mia didn't mind. To her, every smile she inspired was worth it. The next morning, Mia woke up early as usual. After preparing breakfast for Ethan and packing his lunchbox, she headed to campus for her first class of the day. The lecture hall was crowded, filled with students eager to learn about educational psychology. Mia sat near the back, quietly jotting down key points as the professor discussed strategies for fostering emotional intelligence in children. She listened intently, imagining how she could apply these techniques once she became a teacher. After class, Mia walked to the library to study before her afternoon shift at the restaurant. As she flipped through her textbooks, her thoughts drifted back to Emily and Alexander. Something about their dynamic intrigued her. Despite his wealth, Alexander seemed distant, almost unsure of how to connect with his daughter. And Emily, sweet, spirited Emily, reminded Mia of Ethan when he was younger. They both craved attention and affection, yearning for someone to truly see them. Lost in thought, Mia barely noticed when her phone buzzed on the table. Picking it up, she saw a text from her best friend, Clara. "How was work last night?" "Still. Surviving the rich folks?" Mia chuckled softly and replied, surviving and thriving. Met a cute kid who loved my magic cookie story. Clara responded instantly, "Magic cookies? You're such a dork. But seriously, I bet you saved the day again. Nobody handles kids like you do." Mia smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for Clara's unwavering support. They had been friends since high school, and Clara always understood Mia's struggles without judgment. When Mia's parents died, Clara was the one who helped her navigate the chaos, offering a shoulder to cry on and practical advice whenever needed. Even now, Clara remained her rock, cheering her on as she pursued her dreams. Later that afternoon, Mia arrived at the restaurant, tying her apron around her waist as she clocked in for her shift. The place was already bustling with activity, and the manager greeted her with a nod. "Busy night ahead," he said briskly. "We've got a VIP guest tonight, some big-shot billionaire." Mia shrugged, unfazed. She had served plenty of wealthy patrons before and knew better than to get starstruck. To her, everyone deserved the same level of care and respect, regardless of their bank account balance. Still, she couldn't help but wonder if Alexander would return with Emily. Part of her hope they would. There was something endearing about the way Emily lit up when she laughed. As the evening wore on, Mia moved efficiently between tables, balancing trays laden with gourmet dishes. Her professionalism earned compliments from customers, though she rarely acknowledged them. She preferred staying focused, ensuring every guest felt welcomed and cared for. But halfway through her shift, she spotted a familiar figure entering the restaurant. It was Alexander. This time, he wasn't accompanied by Emily. Instead, he sat alone at a corner table, scrolling through documents on his phone. His sharp suit and commanding presence drew glances from other diners, but Mia paid no attention to that. What caught her eye was the subtle change in his demeanor. He seemed more relaxed, less guarded than the previous night. Curious, Mia approached his table with a polite smile. "Good evening, Mr. Hartwell," she said, addressing him formally. "Can I get you anything?" Alexander looked up, surprised to hear his name. Recognizing Mia, he relaxed slightly. "Ah, yes. Just water for now, thank you." As Mia poured him a glass of water, she hesitated briefly. "I hope Emily is doing well," she ventured, her tone warm but cautious. A flicker of emotion crossed Alexander's face. Gratitude, perhaps, or maybe relief. "She's fine," he replied, his voice softer now. "She hasn't stopped talking about you and your magic cookies." Mia laughed lightly, brushing off the compliment. "Kids love stories. It's easy to win them over." "It's not just kids," Alexander murmured almost to himself. Then, meeting her gaze, he added, "You have a remarkable ability to connect with people. Not everyone can do that." Mia felt a blush creep onto her cheeks. "Thank you," she said simply, unsure how else to respond. Before things could grow awkward, she excused herself to check on other tables, leaving Alexander lost in thought. Over the next hour, Alexander observed Mia discreetly. He watched as she calmed a crying toddler, joked with an elderly couple, and handled a difficult customer with grace. Each interaction revealed a depth of character that intrigued him. Here was someone who radiated kindness, despite facing hardships he could scarcely imagine. Unlike the superficial charm of socialites or the calculated politeness of corporate executives, Mia's warmth felt authentic, untainted by ulterior motives. By the time Alexander left the restaurant, he had made a decision. He didn't know exactly what form it would take, but he was certain of one thing. Mia's actions had left an indelible mark on him. For the first time in months, he felt inspired, not by profit margins or business deals, but by the simple power of human connection. Little did Mia know, her quiet acts of kindness were about to set off a chain reaction that would transform her life in ways she never dreamed possible. The next day, Alexander woke up earlier than usual. His mind was restless, replaying the events of the previous evening over and over again. He couldn't shake off the image of Mia, her warm smile, her genuine interactions with strangers, and the way she had effortlessly connected with Emily. It wasn't just her kindness that struck him, it was her resilience. Despite clearly living a life filled with challenges, she carried herself with grace and optimism. She reminded him of Sarah, his late wife, who had always believed in the power of compassion to heal even the deepest wounds. As he sipped his morning coffee, Alexander found himself staring out the window at the city skyline. The world outside moved at its usual frenetic pace, but inside his penthouse apartment everything felt still. For years he had prided himself on being a man of logic, a strategist who approached every decision with precision and calculation. But now something unfamiliar stirred within him, an impulse, a gut feeling he couldn't ignore. What if he could do something extraordinary for someone like Mia, someone who gave so much yet asked for nothing in return? By mid-morning, Alexander had made up his mind. He called his assistant, Victoria, and instructed her to gather information about the restaurant where Mia worked. "Find out everything you can about the staff structure, ownership, and financials," he said firmly. When Victoria hesitated, asking why he needed such details, Alexander simply replied, "Just trust me." Over the next few hours, Victoria sent updates via email. The restaurant was part of a larger chain owned by a multinational corporation. However, there was another detail that caught Alexander's attention. The company also operated a small chain of 3 neighborhood cafes. Scattered across the city, these cafes weren't particularly profitable. They catered to locals rather than tourists. But they had potential. They were cozy, inviting spaces that encouraged community gatherings, book clubs, and art exhibitions. To Alexander, they seemed perfect. That afternoon, Alexander sat in his home office, surrounded by papers and spreadsheets. He stared at the figures, running numbers in his head. Transferring ownership of the cafe chain to Mia would require restructuring legal documents, transferring assets, and ensuring compliance with corporate regulations. It was a massive undertaking, one that could easily be dismissed as reckless or impulsive. Yet the more he thought about it, the more convinced he became. This wasn't about charity. It was about empowerment. If anyone deserved a chance to shine, it was Mia. Later that evening, Alexander decided to visit the restaurant again, not as a customer this time, but as an observer. Dressed casually in jeans and a blazer, he entered through the side door and took a seat at a corner booth near the kitchen. From there, he watched Mia work her magic. She greeted regulars by name, remembered their favorite orders, and offered thoughtful recommendations. When a young couple argued loudly at one table, she intervened with tact, diffusing the tension with humor and empathy. Every action she took reinforced what Alexander already knew. Mia was exceptional. After several hours of observation, Alexander approached the manager, a middle-aged man named Greg. "Tell me about her," he said, nodding toward Mia. "What makes her stand out?" Greg didn't hesitate. "Mia. She's one of a kind, works harder than anyone else here, never complains, and always puts others first. Customers love her and so does the team. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without her." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "Does she have any dreams? Goals?" Greg smiled. "Yeah, she wants to be a teacher someday. Keeps talking about helping kids from tough backgrounds. Says she knows what it's like to struggle and wants to make a difference." Those words resonated deeply with Alexander. He thanked Greg and stepped outside, pulling out his phone. Within minutes, he was speaking to his lawyers, outlining his plan. By the end of the call, the wheels were set in motion. Ownership of the cafe chain would be transferred to Mia, along with enough capital to renovate and expand the businesses. It was a bold move, one that would change not only Mia's life, but also the lives of countless others who frequented those cafes. 2 days later, Mia arrived at work, unaware of the storm brewing behind the scenes. Her shift began like any other, greeting customers, taking orders, and ensuring everyone felt welcome. Around noon, Greg called her into his office. Confused, Mia knocked lightly on the door before stepping inside. To her surprise, Alexander Hartwell was sitting there, looking slightly nervous but determined. "Mr. Hartwell?" Mia stammered, glancing between him and Greg. "Is everything okay?" Alexander stood up and extended his hand. Please, call me Alexander. And yes, everything is fine. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Mia hesitated, shaking his hand briefly before taking a seat. Her heart raced as Greg handed her a thick folder. Take a look, he urged gently. Frowning, Mia opened the folder and began reading. At first, she didn't understand what she was seeing: legal documents, property deeds, bank statements. Then it hit her. She gasped, her hands trembling as tears welled up in her eyes. I don't understand, she whispered. What is this? It's yours, Alexander said softly. 3 cafes in the city, fully operational, ready for you to take over. Mia shook her head, overwhelmed. But why? Why are you doing this? Alexander leaned forward, his expression earnest. Because people like you are rare, Mia. You give so much of yourself to others without expecting anything in return. I've seen how you treat people, with kindness, patience, and respect. The world needs more of that. And honestly, I think you'll do amazing things with these cafes. Tears streamed down Mia's face as she struggled to process his words. I can't accept this, she protested weakly. It's too much. You can, Alexander insisted. And you will. Think of it as an investment, not in the cafes, but in you, in your ability to inspire and uplift others. For several moments, Mia sat in stunned silence, clutching the folder tightly. Finally, she looked up at Alexander, her voice breaking as she spoke. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. Alexander smiled warmly. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me one thing: keep doing what you're doing, keep spreading light wherever you go. Mia nodded, overcome with emotion. She hugged Alexander tightly, thanking him repeatedly until Greg gently reminded them they were still in the office. As she stepped back, wiping her tears, a new sense of purpose ignited within her. This wasn't just a gift. It was an opportunity to create something meaningful, something that aligned perfectly with her dreams of helping others. Over the following days, news of the transfer spread quickly among the restaurant staff. Some were skeptical, whispering about favoritism or hidden agendas. Others admired Mia's humility and hard work, believing she deserved every bit of success coming her way. Clara, Mia's best friend, was ecstatic when she heard the news. You've got to throw a party, she exclaimed during one of their late-night phone calls. This is huge. But Mia wasn't focused on celebrations. Instead, she threw herself into learning everything she could about the cafes. With Alexander's guidance, she met with managers, reviewed finances, and toured each location. Each cafe had its own unique charm. One hosted poetry readings, another served as a hub for local artists, and the third doubled as a tutoring center for underprivileged children. Mia instantly fell in love with them, envisioning ways to expand their impact. Meanwhile, Alexander continued visiting the restaurant, often bringing Emily along. Seeing Mia thrive brought him immense satisfaction, but it also deepened his resolve to reconnect with his daughter. Inspired by Mia's selflessness, he started volunteering at a local shelter, teaching Emily the importance of giving back. Slowly, but surely, father and daughter began rebuilding their bond, one shared experience at a time. Looking back, Alexander realized his decision had been unconventional, perhaps even reckless. But as he watched Mia transform the cafes into thriving community hubs, he knew it had been worth it. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of fulfillment that no business deal or boardroom victory could provide. Kindness, he learned, wasn't just a virtue, it was a force capable of changing lives, including his own. And for Mia, this was only the beginning. The days following Alexander's life-altering decision felt surreal for Mia. She couldn't stop thinking about the cafes now under her ownership, nor could she fully grasp how drastically her life had changed overnight. Each morning, as she prepared for work, she glanced at the folder containing the legal documents and business plans. It served as a constant reminder of Alexander's generosity and the immense responsibility that came with it. At first, Mia struggled to balance her roles as a waitress, student, and cafe owner. Her days were already packed. Classes in the morning, shifts at the restaurant in the evening, and late nights spent studying or babysitting to earn extra money. Adding 3 cafes to the mix seemed impossible, but Mia wasn't one to back down from a challenge. With determination burning in her chest, she dove headfirst into learning everything she could about running a business. Alexander made himself available to mentor her, offering advice on managing finances, hiring staff, and expanding services. At first, Mia hesitated to rely too heavily on him, fearing she might seem ungrateful or incapable. But Alexander insisted, reminding her that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. "You're doing something incredible here," he told her during one of their meetings. "Let me be part of it." Under his guidance, Mia quickly discovered her natural talent for leadership. She visited each cafe daily, speaking with employees, listening to customer feedback, and brainstorming ways to make the spaces more inclusive and welcoming. One cafe introduced free art workshops for children, another partnered with local shelters to provide meals for the homeless. The third became a hub for tutoring programs, where volunteers helped struggling students improve their grades. These initiatives weren't just good for business, they brought communities together, fostering connections and spreading hope. Meanwhile, Alexander found himself spending more time at the restaurant, not because of business obligations, but because of Emily. Inspired by Mia's dedication to helping others, he began bringing Emily along whenever he met with Mia. Initially, Emily was hesitant, unsure what to make of this sudden routine. But Mia's warmth quickly won her over. Whether it was teaching her how to bake cookies or sharing stories about her own childhood, Mia created moments of joy that Emily hadn't experienced in years. One afternoon, while touring one of the cafes, Emily tugged on Mia's sleeve and asked shyly, "Can I come back tomorrow? I want to learn how to frost cupcakes." Mia laughed softly, kneeling down to meet Emily's gaze. "Of course you can, sweetheart, anytime you want." Watching this exchange, Alexander felt a lump rise in his throat. For months he had struggled to connect with Emily after losing Sarah. Work had consumed him, leaving little room for parenting. But seeing Emily light up around Mia reminded him of the importance of presence, the simple act of being there for his daughter. He realized that wealth and success meant nothing if he couldn't share meaningful experiences with the people he loved most. Inspired by Mia's example, Alexander decided to take action. He began volunteering at a nearby shelter, something Sarah had done regularly before her passing. At first, Emily resisted, claiming she'd rather stay home and watch TV. But when Alexander promised they'd bake cookies for the shelter residents afterward, she reluctantly agreed. To everyone's surprise, including her own, Emily ended up enjoying herself. She played board games with the kids, helped serve dinner, and even gave away some of her toys to families in need. These outings became a weekly tradition, strengthening the bond between father and daughter. Slowly but surely, Alexander started opening up to Emily about his grief, sharing memories of Sarah and encouraging her to talk about her feelings. It wasn't easy. There were tears and awkward silences, but the effort paid off. For the first time in years, Emily felt truly seen and heard. As weeks turned into months, Mia threw herself into transforming the cafes into thriving community centers. She hired additional staff, many of whom were single mothers or students, looking for flexible jobs. She organized fundraising events to support local charities and hosted book drives to stock libraries in underserved neighborhoods. Word of her efforts spread quickly, drawing attention from local newspapers and social media influencers. Soon, the cafes became known not just for their coffee and pastries, but for their mission to uplift others. Despite her growing responsibilities, Mia never lost sight of why she did what she did. Every smile, every thank you note, every child who walked out of a tutoring session feeling proud of their progress, it all fueled her passion. Even on tough days when bills piled up or equipment broke down, she reminded herself of her mother's words. "Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything." Her hard work didn't go unnoticed. Customers began referring to her as the heart of the cafes, praising her ability to make everyone feel welcome. Employees admired her leadership style, which emphasized teamwork and compassion over strict hierarchies. And Alexander watched with quiet pride as Mia blossomed into a confident entrepreneur, proving that true success wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives touched along the way. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Mia stood behind the counter of her busiest cafe, watching a group of children laugh as they decorated cupcakes during a baking class. Nearby, elderly patrons sipped tea while discussing their favorite novels, and a young artist sketched portraits for visitors. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, a testament to the community Mia had built. Just then, the door opened, and Alexander walked in with Emily. They carried a large box filled with homemade cookies, freshly baked that morning. Emily beamed as she set the box on the counter. "We made these for you," she announced proudly. "Daddy helped, but I did most of the frosting." Mia laughed, pulling Emily into a hug. "They look amazing. Thank you both so much." Alexander smiled, glancing around the cafe. "It's incredible what you've done here, Mia. You've created something truly special." Mia shook her head modestly. "I couldn't have done it without your support, or without people like you believing in me." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. A young boy, no older than 10, rushed in holding a crumpled flyer. "Is this where the free art classes are?" he asked breathlessly. "Yes, it is," Mia replied, crouching down to his level. "Are you here for the workshop?" The boy nodded eagerly. "My mom said I could come. She works 2 jobs, so she can't afford lessons, but she wants me to keep drawing." Mia's eyes softened. "Well, you're in the right place. Let's get you started." As she guided the boy toward the activity area, Alexander watched quietly, his heart swelling with admiration. In that moment, he realized how interconnected their lives had become. What started as a chance encounter at a restaurant had evolved into a partnership rooted in kindness, resilience, and shared purpose. Together, they were creating ripples of change that extended far beyond themselves. Little did they know, their journey was far from over. New challenges lay ahead, but so did opportunities to grow, inspire, and transform. For Mia, Alexander, and Emily, the best was yet to come. A year had passed since the day Alexander handed Mia the keys to the cafe chain, and the transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The 3 cafes were no longer just places to grab a cup of coffee. They had become vibrant hubs of connection, creativity, and compassion. Each location thrived in its own unique way, reflecting Mia's vision of fostering community while addressing real needs. The first cafe, nestled in a bustling neighborhood, became a sanctuary for local artists. Its walls were adorned with colorful paintings, photographs, and sculptures created by emerging talents. Every Friday evening, the space hosted open mic nights where poets, musicians, and storytellers shared their work. These events drew crowds of all ages, creating an atmosphere of celebration and inspiration. For many struggling artists, the cafe offered not only exposure but also hope, a reminder that their voices mattered. The second cafe focused on education and empowerment. Mia partnered with schools and nonprofit organizations to offer free tutoring sessions, career counseling, and workshops on financial literacy. Students from underprivileged backgrounds flocked to the cafe after school, eager to learn and grow. Volunteers, including retired teachers and college students, dedicated their time to mentoring these children. Emily often joined them, helping younger kids practice reading or solve math problems. It was during these moments that Alexander saw a spark in his daughter, a newfound confidence and sense of purpose. The third cafe remained a haven for families in need. On weekends, it served as a distribution center for food and clothing drives. Mia collaborated with shelters and charities to ensure essential supplies reached those struggling to make ends meet. She also introduced a pay-it-forward board where customers could purchase meals or drinks for others who couldn't afford them. The initiative quickly gained popularity, turning strangers into allies united by kindness. For Mia, managing the cafes was both exhilarating and exhausting. Her days started early and ended late, filled with meetings, brainstorming sessions, and hands-on work. Yet, she never complained. Instead, She embraced every challenge as an opportunity to grow. Her employees admired her dedication, often saying, "Mia doesn't just run this place, she lives it." They weren't wrong. Every decision Mia made stemmed from her belief in the power of community. Whether it was hiring single mothers to provide stable incomes or hosting fundraisers for disaster relief, she prioritized people over profits. Alexander played a crucial role in Mia's journey, offering guidance whenever needed. He helped her navigate legal complexities, secure funding for expansions, and build partnerships with influential figures in the city. But more importantly, he supported her emotionally, reminding her to take breaks and celebrate her achievements. Their relationship evolved into a deep friendship built on mutual respect and trust. What began as gratitude for Mia's kindness toward Emily blossomed into admiration for her resilience and vision. Emily, too, underwent a profound transformation. Spending time at the cafes exposed her to diverse perspectives and experiences. She learned about homelessness, poverty, and inequality, not through textbooks, but through real-life interactions. One afternoon, while volunteering at the Pay It Forward cafe, she met a young boy named Leo who lived in a shelter with his mother. Despite their circumstances, Leo radiated positivity, teaching Emily how to fold origami animals during a craft session. That evening, as they drove home, Emily turned to Alexander and said, "Daddy, can we help Leo and his mom? Maybe we can find them a better place to live." Touched by her empathy, Alexander nodded. "We'll do everything we can, sweetheart." Over the next few weeks, Alexander worked tirelessly to secure affordable housing for Leo's family. When the lease was finalized, Emily insisted on surprising Leo with handmade decorations for his new room. Together, they spent hours painting stars on cardboard cutouts and stringing fairy lights. On moving day, Emily proudly presented her creations to Leo, who hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face. Witnessing this exchange, Alexander realized how much Emily had grown, not just in maturity, but in understanding the value of giving back. As the months went by, Mia continued to expand the cafe's impact. She launched a program called Dream Big, aimed at supporting aspiring entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. Participants received mentorship, resources, and small grants to kickstart their businesses. The initiative quickly gained traction, earning recognition from local media and government officials.
One recipient, a young woman named Priya, used the grant to open a sustainable fashion boutique. Another, a former construction worker named Marcus, started a landscaping company specializing in urban gardens. Both credited Mia for believing
in them when no one else did. Despite her success, Mia remained humble. She often told her staff, "None of this would be possible without teamwork. We're building something bigger than ourselves." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring everyone around her to contribute their best efforts. Even Ethan, Mia's younger brother, got involved. Now 17 and passionate about photography, he documented the cafe's activities, capturing candid moments of joy and camaraderie. His photos were displayed on social media, attracting even more support and attention. One chilly December evening, the busiest cafe hosted its annual holiday party. The air buzzed with excitement as families gathered to enjoy hot cocoa, carol, singing, and cookie decorating. Children ran around laughing, their cheeks flushed pink from the cold. Adults mingled, sharing stories and exchanging gifts wrapped in recycled paper. At the center of it all stood Mia, orchestrating the event with her usual grace and enthusiasm. As Alexander watched from a corner table, he reflected on how far they'd come. A year ago, he had been a distant father struggling to connect with his daughter. Now, thanks to Mia's influence, he and Emily had rebuilt their bond, rediscovering the joy of spending quality time together. Volunteering at shelters and participating in community projects had taught Emily the importance of empathy and service. And for Alexander, it had reignited a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. That night, as snowflakes began to fall outside, Alexander approached Mia and pulled her aside. "I wanted to thank you," he said sincerely. "Not just for what you've done with the cafes, but for everything you've given us. You've changed our lives in ways I never imagined." Mia smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You gave me this chance, Alexander. Without you, none of this would have been possible." He shook his head gently. "No, Mia. You're the one who made it happen. Your kindness, your determination, it's infectious. You remind me that true wealth isn't about money. It's about the connections we nurture and the lives we touch." They stood there silently for a moment, surrounded by laughter and music. Then, Mia glanced at Emily, who was busy teaching a group of kids how to frost gingerbread cookies. "She's amazing, isn't she?" Mia said softly. "She is," Alexander agreed, pride swelling in his chest. "And so are you." By the end of the evening, the cafe was alive with warmth and cheer. Strangers had become friends, sharing hugs and heartfelt conversations. As Mia looked around, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for Alexander's generosity, for her team's hard work, and for the countless individuals who believed in her mission. She knew challenges lay ahead, expanding services, securing funding, and navigating unforeseen obstacles. But she faced them with unwavering optimism. For Alexander, Emily, and Mia, the past year had been transformative. What started as a simple act of kindness had grown into a movement rooted in love, resilience, and humanity. Together, they had proven that even the smallest gestures could create ripples of change, touching hearts and transforming lives. And, as they stood side by side watching the snow blanket the city, they knew their journey was far from over. There were still bridges to build, dreams to chase, and stories to write. 2 years had passed since Alexander's life-changing decision to transfer ownership of the cafe chain to Mia. The cafes were now thriving institutions, celebrated not just for their delicious food and cozy ambiance, but for the positive impact they had on the community. Each location had become a beacon of hope, a place where people from all walks of life could come together, share stories, and find support. For Mia, it was more than a business. It was her dream realized. The first cafe, once a quiet corner spot frequented by locals, had transformed into a cultural hub. Artists lined up months in advance to showcase their work during the monthly exhibitions. Musicians performed soulful melodies during open mic nights, drawing applause from packed audiences. The walls were covered with vibrant murals painted by volunteers, turning the space into an ever-evolving canvas of creativity. Families visited regularly, knowing they'd leave inspired and uplifted. The second cafe continued to serve as a center for education and empowerment. Its tutoring program expanded to include adult learners seeking GED certification or job training. Local schools partnered with Mia to offer after-school programs focused on STEM education and creative arts. Emily, now 10 years old, spent countless hours volunteering there, helping younger children practice reading and math. Watching her interact with students, Alexander marveled at how much she had grown, not just academically but emotionally. She was confident, compassionate, and eager to make a difference. The third cafe remained a lifeline for families facing hardship. Its Pay It Forward board was always full, with customers generously purchasing meals for strangers in need. During holidays, the cafe organized large-scale drives to distribute food, clothing, and toys to shelters across the city. One Christmas, Mia coordinated a special event where families staying in transitional housing were invited to enjoy a festive meal and receive gifts donated by patrons. As children unwrapped presents and parents expressed heartfelt gratitude, Alexander felt a lump rise in his throat. It was moments like these that reminded him why wealth paled in comparison to purpose. For Mia, running the cafes was both rewarding and challenging. Her days were long, often stretching from early morning until late at night. Yet, she never complained. Instead, she poured her heart into every task, whether it was mentoring employees, planning events, or brainstorming ways to expand services. Despite her busy schedule, she made time for Ethan, who had graduated high school and enrolled in college to study photography. His lens captured the essence of the cafes, the laughter, the tears, the connections, and his photos became a powerful tool for advocacy, attracting even more support from donors and volunteers. Alexander remained a constant presence in Mia's life, offering guidance whenever needed. He helped her navigate legal hurdles, secure funding for expansions, and build partnerships with influential figures. But beyond his role as a mentor, he became a true friend. Their shared experiences strengthened their bond, creating a partnership rooted in mutual respect and admiration. Together, they proved that collaboration could achieve extraordinary results. Emily, too, thrived under Mia's influence. Volunteering at the cafes taught her valuable lessons about empathy, resilience, and the importance of giving back. She developed a deep understanding of social issues like homelessness, inequality, and mental health. One summer, she spearheaded a campaign to raise awareness about childhood hunger, organizing bake sales and art auctions to fund local food banks. Her efforts earned recognition from community leaders, solidifying her reputation as a compassionate and determined young leader. As the years went by, Mia's vision expanded beyond the cafes. Inspired by the success of her Dream Big program, she founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting aspiring entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. The initiative provided grants, mentorship, and resources to help participants turn their ideas into reality. Recipients ranged from single mothers starting daycare centers to veterans launching fitness studios. Each story was a testament to Mia's belief in the power of opportunity and inclusion. One recipient, a young woman named Rosa, used the grant to open a sustainable farm outside the city. Her produce supplied fresh ingredients to the cafes, completing a cycle of collaboration and sustainability. Another recipient, a former construction worker named Jamal, started a woodworking studio specializing in eco-friendly furniture. Both credited Mia for believing in them when no one else did. "She saw something in me I didn't see in myself," Rosa said during a thank you speech at the nonprofit's annual gala. "And because of her, I'm able to give back to my community." Mia's achievements didn't go unnoticed. Local newspapers featured her story, praising her innovative approach to social entrepreneurship. National magazines highlighted her journey, calling her a change maker and a force for good. Invitations to speak at conferences and panel discussions poured in, allowing her to share her philosophy with wider audiences. Yet, despite the accolades, Mia stayed grounded. She often reminded herself and others that success wasn't measured in awards or headlines but in the lives touched along the way. One sunny afternoon, the busiest cafe hosted a grand celebration to mark its 5th anniversary. The event brought together hundreds of people, employees, customers, volunteers, and beneficiaries of Mia's programs. Tables groaned under the weight of homemade dishes contributed by attendees, while musicians played lively tunes in the background. Children ran around laughing, their faces smeared with frosting from the massive birthday cake. Adults exchanged hugs and heartfelt conversations, reminiscing about how the cafe had impacted their lives. At the center of it all stood Mia, beaming with pride as she looked around at the sea of smiling faces. Beside her were Alexander and Emily, both holding plates piled high with food. As they ate, Emily turned to her father and whispered, "This feels like home, doesn't it?" Alexander nodded, his eyes misty with emotion. "It does, sweetheart, and it's because of people like Mia that places like this exist." Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Mia gathered everyone for a brief speech. Standing on a small stage decorated with fairy lights, she addressed the crowd. "When I first took over these cafes, I had no idea what lay ahead. All I knew was that I wanted to create spaces where people felt seen, heard, and valued. Thanks to all of you, our staff, our volunteers, our customers, we've done far more than that. We've built a family." Her voice cracked slightly as she continued. "None of this would have been possible without the support of amazing people like Alexander and Emily. They believed in me when I doubted myself, and they reminded me that kindness is the strongest foundation we can build upon. So tonight I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being part of this incredible journey." The room erupted in applause, echoing through the cafe like a symphony of gratitude. As Mia stepped down from the stage, Alexander pulled her aside. "You're extraordinary, Mia," he said. his tone filled with admiration. "What you've created here, it's magic." Mia smiled, shaking her head modestly. "No, Alexander. Magic happens when people come together with love and purpose. This isn't just my story, it's ours." Looking back, Alexander realized how much his life had changed since that fateful evening at the restaurant. What began as a simple act of generosity had evolved into a profound transformation, not just for Mia and Emily, but for himself as well. He had rediscovered the joy of connection, the fulfillment of service, and the beauty of human kindness. For the first time in years, he felt truly content. Mia, too, reflected on how far she had come. From juggling multiple jobs to support her brother to owning a thriving cafe chain and nonprofit organization, her journey was a testament to resilience and determination, yet she knew none of it would have been possible without the unwavering support of those around her. Every smile, every hug, every word of encouragement reminded her that she was never alone. As the sun set over the city, casting golden hues across the skyline, Mia, Alexander, and Emily stood together outside the cafe. They watched as families lingered inside, reluctant to leave the warmth and camaraderie of the space. For Mia, it was proof that her mission had succeeded, that the cafes had become more than businesses. They were sanctuaries of hope and healing. In the end, their story was one of unexpected beginnings, shared struggles, and boundless possibilities. It was a reminder that true wealth lies not in material possessions but in relationships, compassion, and the ability to make a difference. And as they walked away hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew their journey was far from over. There were still lives to touch, dreams to chase, and bridges to build.